Ubisoft's games are a bit of a guilty pleasure for me. Over time they have morphed into a single idea with a different filter applied on it. But in a way, these games are the kind of entertainment which can be enjoyed, provided the player doesn't expect too much in terms of innovation. The simple principle of more of what mostly works has been an effective strategy which is continuously applied by these devs. From that point of view, one could say that Far Cry 6 is the next natural step. It's mostly the same game as its predecessors with minor changes, some of which for the better, others not so much. As is tradition with Ubisoft games, they support all ultra-wide resolutions natively, which is awesome. This time the action takes place in a fictional country called Yara, which was designed to resemble Cuba in many ways. Our new villain is called Anton Castillo, who is played by Gus from Breaking Bad. El Presidente ends up being one of the better villains of the series, in part because of the actor himself, who is very good at playing such roles. The drama around him is very interesting, and we are even given his backstory later on, which helps us understand how he came to be such a hardline dictator. And while he's clearly evil, some of his points are quite valid. After having played the game, I can't really say for sure if eliminating him and giving the country over to the trigger-happy resistance sociopaths is really the good ending, at least not the one I was hoping to fight for. The game gives us a short intro and then opens up, allowing for the player and his co-op partners to explore at will. One of the things which present a small restriction is the level rating of all territories. Similarly to Assassin's Creed, Far Cry has also become more of an RPG. The different territories on the map have different level indicators, and if these are higher than our characters, the damage we do to the enemies is reduced while they in turn do more damage to us. In a way, this is supposed to guide the player, but if you're a real man, you won't let the game tell you what you can or cannot do. Besides looking at the map, you will quickly realize that there are outposts as well as military targets which all need to be dealt with. This is where we talk about one of my favorite activities, taking over outposts sneakily. If you've played previous Far Cry titles, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Grab your trusty knife and kill every enemy until you've taken over the place. It's very satisfying and can be quite easy, especially when using suppressed weapons. This is where you'll notice one of the first changes to the gameplay. Suppressors now overheat. This means that using an automatic weapon is not advisable if you want to remain undetected for long. That's a decent change, though I have to also say that it doesn't really affect stealth very much. I would still go in either with a pistol, a sniper / DMR, or even just my knife, so that the overheating suppressor was not much of a problem. Another change to the stealth gameplay was the implementation of security cameras. They basically detect you or dead enemies, but the problem with them is that all it takes is a single gunshot and they're eliminated. The issue is solved. The same counts for alarms, by the way, but this has been there from the past as well. You can simply shoot those as well and it disables them. Imagine if you are a security guy and suddenly the camera feed for one of the cameras turns off. Would you be like, must have been the wind? Or would you immediately inform everyone that something's off and tell them to investigate? So yeah, they should have made it so that destroying cameras would cause everyone to investigate, and if they confirm that the camera was actually shot, they should initiate an alarm. And to be frank, this should be the same case with the other alarms, the ones where they press to call reinforcements. And since I mentioned the suppressors earlier, let me talk about the customization of the guns. There are a bunch of them, more than in previous titles, and you can customize the hell out of them. One of the newer additions are the different bullet types, though to be fair, you will probably only ever use armor-piercing rounds. The reason for that being that most enemies will wear helmets or even body armor. This means that if you use any other bullet type, you essentially make the enemies into bullet sponges. And speaking of which, we have yet another game where the enemies have health bars, and if you are underpowered or have the wrong ammo type, you can shoot guys in the head and not be able to drop them for a while. It's very annoying and the main reason why I hate these RPG systems in such games. At times I was reminded of games like The Division, which accidentally is also a Ubisoft game. But there you literally have bullet sponge enemies and you can shoot them in the head with heavy weapons and they just lose a little bit of health, so you change your magazine, shoot more in the head, and eventually the enemy will drop. It's not quite as bad here, but we're definitely on the way to getting there. And speaking of RPG systems, we have a new tool called the Supremo, which is basically a backpack with a special ability. It charges like an ultimate and is pretty useful. My wife and I really like the medical one, which can even self-revive you if someone manages to knock you down. Another role-playing game element is the fact that if you holster your weapon when outside of restricted areas, the enemies will consider you a civilian and not attack, which, while curious, is really not that useful. I guess it's supposed to be more immersive, but latest at the middle of the game, you have been everywhere, destroyed all the outposts. These guys should know you. They should be able to wake up and immediately recognize that you are the guy or the girl who's supposed to be dead. So this is kind of weird for me, but that's fine, you know, it's an interesting addition. Not something that I really cherish, but maybe some people will enjoy it. Another new thing that I wanted to mention are the tanks. You can hijack all kinds of vehicles, but nothing makes you into a bigger beast than stealing a tank. They are fun to drive around and completely overpowered, as a tank should be, to be honest. This is where I want to return to the levels which I have mentioned before. In Far Cry 6 you level up, but gain no skills from it. No, your skills come from gear and particularly the clothing you wear. Especially in the late game, you can get set pieces which give very nice perks when combined. The DLCs, which I will mention a bit later, also reward you with some pretty unique sets. We also have to collect resources in this game, which you will find pretty much everywhere. All locations have resources and they're spread out all over the place. This is something we saw in Far Cry New Dawn, and I must say that I don't love it. The problem with the resources is that they're way too useful. You need them to craft attachments, you need them to craft all kinds of stuff to build up your camp, so they are useful and you will want to grab them. Which then forces you to constantly look around like a hoarder who's just seen something that he really wants, and that something is all kinds of trash. You would enter an outpost, clean it, and then spend a while just running around collecting shit. And speaking of the outposts, they still feel way too small. Most won't take more than a few minutes to clear, which is simply way too fast. I would have loved more of a challenge, which is not created by simply making the enemy stronger, but by making the outposts larger and denser. Maybe have the guards sleep at night like it was in Wildlands. My wife would usually snipe from afar and inform me about enemy movements, while I sneak up in there and slit a few throats. But in Far Cry 6, this is not viable, since there aren't usually more than 10 to 15 guards at most. Actually, they're usually a lot less than that. Every fun activity is over before it even began. The sniper support is overkill in such a situation, and frankly that's the case in pretty much all of them, which is very sad, because at some point we had to change the tactic. She didn't do the sniper support anymore, she would just move in. It was essentially almost like a race who will get more kills, and trust me, it would never be many kills because, as I've said before, there just aren't enough NPCs to kill. Oh, and let me also mention the other companions besides your co-op partners. In this case, we're talking about cute animals which run around us and assist. You've probably seen the footage with the handicapped wiener dog or the alligator in a vest, to which we like to refer as the investigator. Those were awesome in previous games, and god damn it, they still are. I love having animal companions. They are cool and you can even pet them. I mean, the wiener dog, whose name is Chorizo by the way, which is a Spanish type of sausage, making it a great fitting name. That dog is so cute that its ability is to go and have the enemies pet it. It's literally going and cuteness overloading your enemies. My essential problem with this is that it creates an opening for you to murder them from behind, from the side, to shoot them. And it made me feel really bad because, after all, these are guys who are petting a sweet dog and you're killing them in the meantime. It's just, you're the asshole here. It's not them. You're the bad guy in this moment. Or at least that's how I felt. It's probably more of a me problem, but you know, this is how it was for me. But yeah. Unlocking new companions and then also unlocking their abilities, because you can do that too, is pretty nice. Next up, I want to mention the treasure hunts, which are here again from previous games. We've seen them. They are still some of my absolute favorite side activities, since they have puzzles and reward you with very nice items. There's also a new type of mission which I like to call choose your own adventure type of mission, where you basically send a special guerrilla and they get to choose what he or she will do. Well, actually you get to choose that. Your choices can cause the mission to fail or succeed. In the case of the latter, you will get some pretty nice rewards. The only drawback of these is that they literally have a time gate, which means that you have to wait real astronomical hours before you can choose what needs to happen. No idea what that's about. Well, to be fair, I do have an idea as a matter of fact. I think it's designed to stop you from spamming these missions all day and get tons of resources and other rewards from them. To be fair, that would be pretty boring anyway. I wouldn't abuse it, but I can see how they would want you to focus on playing the game and getting resources and everything else in other ways rather than sitting 3 hours and just clicking on subtext. Speaking of missions, let's talk about the main ones. The game pretty much asks us to go around and gain allies for the revolution. Most of these allies are either crazy or really boring. I swear there was not a single NPC which seemed normal in this game. The more of these people I recruited, the more I realized that this country is doomed if the quote-unquote good guys win. One new thing which I ended up enjoying were the quest screens. Those show the NPC explaining the mission. It looks nice, the animations are fluid, but it does have the drawback of forcing us to stay and do nothing while watching if we want to hear anything the NPC has to say about the task at hand. Last but not least, let me quickly address the DLCs. They're all happening in the head of previous villains and are very interesting. Not only do we get to enjoy more of our favorite bad guys, but we also have a fun and very challenging quest every time. We can buy skills, increase our stats, unlock and upgrade weapons. All of it is done really well and provides us with unique looks into the psyche of Vas Montenegro, Pagan Min and Joseph Seed. These DLCs were in fact so interesting with their unique setting, the awesome voice acting, and the depth of each character's individual suffering that I ended up enjoying them far more than the main game, and that's saying something. As you can see so far, the game has been mostly okay. Yeah, it's nothing groundbreaking, I won't lie, but it was mostly fun. However, if you've read the description of this video, you probably know that I'm about to start ripping it a new one any moment. Well, okay then, let's talk about Far Cry 6's attempt to virtue signal at us and shove political ideas down our throats. First of all, almost every important character in this game is a woman. Our protagonist Dani is canonically female. The resistance we fight for is led by a woman. The leader of the second resistance called La Moral is also female. Most characters of any consequence are women. Let's not forget the fact that all of these women are sociopaths who kill everything that dares to look in their direction, which I assume is supposed to make them look strong, but instead just makes them unlikable and crazy. Some of them are quite young as well, probably in their early 20s. It's nonsense and completely unbelievable. And by the way, they are generally written very poorly. There's a huge difference between woke, strong female character, and I'm making sarcastic quotation marks as I'm saying this, and actual strong female characters. Think of examples like Lara Croft, who is not confident in first, and as her story progresses, as she gains experience and realizes that she can handle all these incredible challenges, her confidence increases and she grows into a proper strong female character. That's how you do it. You don't just make a bunch of female sociopaths and declare that they are awesome. That is not how it works at all. Had this been the only woke bullshit, I might have been able to stomach it. But it doesn't matter since it's not. Ubisoft decided that the game is simply not woke enough and threw in a woman who after several surgeries managed to mutilate herself enough into looking like a man. Supposedly this is now a man, but just to make sure that every box has been ticked in the woke journal, this woman is in a relationship with another woman, which by the way is supposed to be a straight relationship because that first woman is actually now a man because of the surgeries. And just in case the player hasn't gotten the message, there are several main quests which tell us about her transition. At one point, we get to meet the doctor who operated her, and he remarks on how incredibly brave she was during her top surgery, etc. She first wants to escape to the States so that she can be who she really is, but then decides to stay and change Yara. I swear this goes on and the game does not let up with the political bullshit. Can you imagine that Ubisoft made a game in which they created a dictator who spreads propaganda, and this is clearly described as bad, while the same game spreads propaganda and gender politics in one and the same breath as it tells us, oh, that's pretty bad, but you know, at the same time we're doing it too. I am so fed up with politics in video games. They were so busy with ticking as many woke boxes as possible that they completely forgot about making the main story interesting. As mentioned before, most characters are annoying. The whole thing is not believable, the main missions are boring, and we don't see any character development outside of the game's villain and his son. So long story short, should you play Far Cry 6? No, fuck that. Don't give them money anymore. We vote with our wallets and it's become clear that things will only get worse. We need to make a statement. I regret having given them any money and strongly advise you not to do it either. I love video games. I love them so much that I don't want to contribute to their conversion into political propaganda tools. Either stop planting your bullshit into our games or fuck off. Until this changes, no more money for you, Ubisoft. At least none of mine. And I really hope none of yours, dear viewer. I also ended up buying Watch Dogs Legion. I did it before I played this one, so I will end up reviewing it next, but it doesn't count. After Watch Dogs Legions, there will really not be any more Ubisoft games. So yeah, I'm gonna review Watch Dogs next because I've already played it and I kind of have my notes. But then I'm boycotting Ubisoft until they stop doing this shit. With that having been said, I want to thank you for watching Game Filter. This review got a bit intense by the end, but it's due to the fact that I really care about this otherwise wonderful form of entertainment. Seeing it being misused like this hurts and angers me greatly. Make no mistake, this is a sickness and it's spreading faster and faster. I know that we have not reached the point of no return yet, but if we don't act as a community and begin boycotting these games, things will only get worse. Thank you for your support. Be sure to let me know what you think in the comments and stay tuned for my next video. Until then, have a great day. This is Nino signing out.